What's up, YouTube? I am the Vanilla Nerd, and today I'm going to review Fantastic Four from 2005. I know it's been like 19 years since this movie came out, and I'm finally reviewing it, but yeah, I don't know. I watched it the other day and want to talk about it, so that's what we're going to do. As always, there will be heavy spoilers for the entire movie throughout, but as I just mentioned, it is a 19-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it by now, well, I don't know. You've missed your chance. That's a lot of time to have seen this movie. So please get out now if you don't want any spoilers. Okay, so right out of the gate, this movie is about what I expected. I've heard about this movie for the last 19 years. I'm a big superhero fan, so I've seen clips and stuff from it, and I've heard it discussed a couple times, and I knew that it was good, not great, kind of a thing, and that's about what I got. I do think it's actually a little bit better than that. Like, it was better than what I anticipated, which was pleasantly surprising and stuff, and I had a good time watching it even 19 years later, so that was super fun. The other thing I will say about it is that it was good enough that it spawned a sequel, and that it was good enough that Chris Evans felt the superhero fame before he took Captain America. I remember watching an interview with him, and that was one of the things that he talks about being something that made him hesitate to take Captain America, because he knew what superhero fame was like. I'm really glad he took it, and that whole happy story that we all know and love. So anyway, moving on. What I will say is I think this movie got the Fantastic Four right, and that is fantastic. No pun intended. I think they got each of the characters done really, really well. They did them justice. They had fun with them. And I think they all had their chance to shine. And also, I think that the group of the Fantastic Four really felt like a family and got on each other's nerves and made each other laugh and smile in a way that only a family can, which is fantastic and so well done and stuff. But on the other hand, hot take, Doctor Doom was done poorly, which, I mean, that's the one thing I heard about this movie all the time whenever it's brought up, is that they didn't get Doctor Doom quite right. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And in all honesty, I could make an entire video about Doctor Doom and all that stuff, and I already did kind of with Robert Downey Jr. being cast as Doctor Doom, but I'll make a video about that another day. I will get to Doctor Doom later on in the video, but for now, let's jump into characters. So, as I alluded to earlier, I really liked how the characters were individually developed. Mr. Fantastic was very nerdy in a good way that made him endearing and likable. Invisible Woman was tough and fun, and she wasn't going to let people step over her, but she was also still the heart of the team, and that was really sweet and cool to see. Johnny was cocky and an adrenaline junkie, and Chris Evans played him wonderfully, and I loved the Johnny Storm that we got. And then the Thing was rightly very frustrated with his transformation, and that made him quick to anger and to have a little bit of a temper and stuff. And it was interesting. It was interesting with the Thing, because I was honestly surprised at how much screen time he got and how much character development he got. It feels like the writers really connected with the Thing's turmoil and his struggle of being this monstrous looking creature compared to all of the others. And I really like how that was a big focus of the film. I don't know. It was something that I enjoyed. And I like how it kind of resolved itself at the end to a degree where he was more comfortable in his own skin, per se. And we'll talk about the plot here a little bit, because obviously he does get rid of the Thing, but then he chooses to get back into it. And so anyway, we'll talk about that later. Moving on to a con of the film, let's talk about the last main character, Doctor Doom. Now, Doom wasn't all that bad. I think they absolutely nailed his look. He had the mask, he had the hood, he had the green, he had the two big brass buttons. I think that worked really, really well, and I'm impressed by that, and it's commendable. Also, his plan for taking down the Fantastic Four was fantastic. That absolutely felt like Doctor Doom. He played on their emotions, he manipulated them perfectly, and bing, bang, boom, the Thing was depowered, the team was in disarray, and he had Reed all to himself. And, Reed one-on-one versus Doctor Doom doesn't always work out. He needs his team. So that was all great, and I really, really liked that. And I was even fine, in all honesty, with him being the leader of some big corporation rather than the leader of Latveria. I don't love it, but it makes sense for the story they were trying to tell. What I don't like, though, is that they gave him the same power set, or his powers came from the same source as the Fantastic Four. That's just not in the comics and stuff. And again, I know, like making him the head of a big corporation rather than leader of Latveria, the reason they did it was so that they could streamline the story, and so that makes sense, and I get it. But it is kind of frustrating because Doctor Doom really is on the level of like Thanos or Apocalypse or other of these big characters, and so he deserves to be a big major villain with his own origin story and stuff, and tying his origin story to the Fantastic Four kind of frustrating. I'm frustrated that they rushed the Fantastic Four in that sense. But I get it. This was 2005. Superhero movies were still becoming a thing. It makes sense to tell, in the first movie, to tell your story with the biggest name supervillain that you have available to you so that you have the biggest chance of success. And like I said, they did a lot of things right about Doctor Doom, but there was just a lot of other things wrong about it. So, anyway, I can make an entire video about it, and I might do that someday, but not now. In short, I will say Doctor Doom was not the best, but he also wasn't the worst. Looking at you, Fantastic. Jumping back to the good about this movie, I want to talk about how well the Fantastic Four works together as a team, because I really liked the team dynamic, the family dynamic that they had. This is Marvel's first family. And while I wouldn't say they nailed it, they definitely did a good job in many ways. I felt that Invisible Woman was the heart of the team, the glue kind of holding everything together. I felt that Reed's nerdiness was getting on Sue's nerves. I felt that Johnny's arrogance and cockiness was getting on everyone's nerves, and then the Thing is quick to anger and quick to temper. Rightly so. He's turned into this big giant rock monster, but still, it's there. And so I really liked how the team dynamic worked, and this was something where I think the plot and characters came together nicely. Now, this movie in many ways is plot-driven, and we'll get to that in a second, but here's an area where I think they did really well because, they were forced into quarantine by the plot, but also just by the characters' choices. As far as they know, this is a infection. This is a disease that could spread to other people. So they're forced into quarantine inside the Baxter building to study their powers and everything. And therefore, that forces them to come together as a family, to come together as a group. And I love that. On top of that, there is the fact that they use the Baxter building so well. It was so fun to see the Baxter building come to life in this way and to be used so effectively. That's a major location for the comics, up there with like the Batcave or Avengers Tower. So it was really cool to see that in this film. Good on you. But this leads me back to a con, which is some interesting scenes that were clearly there for plot purposes and stuff like that. So like one of the ones, what this reminds me of is when the Invisible Woman is out on the street during the quarantine. I have no idea why she's outside, but then she sees a newsstand and she sees her face big on the newsstand, and then the paparazzi start chasing her, and she decides that the only way to escape is to take off all her clothes and turn invisible and stuff. And you're just like, okay, fun scene to show her mastering her powers, but like, why was she outside in the first place? Like, I don't get it. In a similar thing, there's the infamous bridge scene where it's like she turns invisible to get around the police, but then like Reed and Johnny also get around the police without her. Like, I don't understand why she needed to get around the police in order. It just doesn't make any sense. And stuff. To give credit to the creators, it's possible that there were some deleted scenes in the name of cutting some time off the timestamp, because the movie is an hour and 45 minutes long. That is relatively short in today's standards and stuff. So it's possible that back then they just wanted to keep it short and streamlined, and so they missed some scenes in there and just kept the stuff that, the crucial stuff and whatnot. So, I'll give some credit, but still, it felt very gratuitous just to get some eye candy for the team and stuff. The other thing I will say in terms of missing scenes is, of course, the Blackout. Let's talk about the Blackout. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, famously at the end of Act 1 of this movie, they get hit with all the wave, with the magical energy wave or the scientific energy wave or whatever. Their DNA gets warped, and then it fades to black, And what bothers me about this is I'm fine with it fading to black around this time, but I feel like there should have been a few more things shown, because the very next scene is Ben waking up in a bed back on Earth. It's just like, oh, everything's fine. And it's like, wait. You need to explain, like, we saw their space station getting ripped apart. Like, how did they escape? I have no idea. And later on, Doctor Doom is shown to have a scar on the side of his head, presumably an injury sustained from the attack, from the incident and stuff. And it's like, wait. Why does he have why does he have a scar? Like, where did that come from? I'd like a little more explanation on this and stuff. So I feel like, had they shown Doctor Doom get hit in the head by some, like having his head hit the bulkhead, or having like a box hit him and stuff, that would have been good. Or seeing like the group get onto the space shuttle and, rescue Ben, rescue Doctor Doom. They get on the space shuttle and they're heading back down to Earth. And then it fades to black, as the controls go crazy and as the ship spins out of control. And it's like, hey, we're back on Earth. We're safe. They pull us out of the ocean or something. That all would have been fine. But they didn't do that. They just kind of, like, it felt like there were 2 or 3 missing scenes just before that should have been there but weren't. And again, I'm giving a lot of credit to these writers. I don't know if there were actually missing scenes or anything, but that's just what it felt like. So, To wrap up the plot, I will simply say that this is a more plot-driven film. There are a lot of things that happen just because the plot says they should happen, and that's fine. I really enjoyed the plot they did give me, so it works well, but it does keep it from being an even better movie, to that extent. And then when it comes to the final fight, I will just say it was a little short for my taste, but each of the characters still got to have some fun. I enjoyed seeing Dr. Doom use a rocket launcher. That's always fun. I enjoyed seeing Johnny Storm fly for the first time, truly and well. Seeing The Thing versus Dr. Doom and getting into this punching match was entertaining. Invisible Woman turning invisible and using that to free Reed and help him and all that stuff. Reed using his smarts to quickly cool Dr. Doom. It all made sense. It was a fun little final battle. So while the plot did drive a lot of this movie, it was a fun plot, and I was there for the ride, and I enjoyed it. Finally, I want to finish up with some standout scenes. I really liked seeing Johnny care about Ben's safety. When they're on the space station and Reed's like, hey, we need to get Ben back. And Johnny's like, oh, snap. And, there's never this question in Johnny's mind of, should I stay or go to the shield generator? And he's there and he genuinely cares. He's like, Ben, you need to get back, Ben. And he's like helping Reed get Ben back just as much as he can. And I love that about Johnny, because I think it shows a hidden part about his character where it's like, yeah, he'll tease and be, goofy all day long, but he's always going to be there for you. He's always going to have your back. And I love that. Also, the 2 fights with the Thing between Reed and the Thing, as well as Human Torch and the Thing, were fantastic. No pun intended. I'm sure I've done that a number of times. But the point is, I really liked seeing Human Torch and the Thing fight outside of the motor vehicle place. The Thing throwing the car, the remains of the car that he scrunched up into a ball is hilarious. And then him and Johnny getting into a little bit of a fight before Sue steps in and is like, hey, don't do that. I also love seeing Reed and the Thing fight, and Reed being really hard to knock down because he is made of rubber and he can just continuously elongate his body to trap you and hold you and stuff. And it's a really emotional scene when the Thing accuses Mr. Fantastic and saying, hey, you're not helping me. And Reed knowing that he's helping as much as he can, and just there's nothing they can do. It's just 2 best friends at their wits' end at that point. And it's just, I feel bad for them, but I get it. Totally happens. So overall, I really liked the Fantastic Four. This was a very fun movie and very entertaining to watch, even 19 years later. It has its issues. It could be a better comic book movie, but ironically, it kind of followed the MCU formula of make sure to get the heroes right and worry about the villain second. And I think that worked for this story, and that's why the Fantastic Four movie was good and deserved a sequel and stuff. Now, I haven't seen the sequel. I might see it. I might review it someday, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Point is, like the Fantastic Four, and this was a very fun movie to watch.